Imagine a weapon that never stops flying, never needs fuel, never needs to land. A missile that can circle the Earth, waiting, watching, hunting. It can approach from any direction, the North Pole, the South Pole, across the Pacific after looping around the planet 3 times. Your missile defense systems? Useless. Your early warning radar? Blind. Because this missile flies 50 meters above the ground, lower than most commercial drones, weaving through valleys, skimming over oceans, invisible to everything designed to stop it. And here's the nightmare. It spreads radiation everywhere it flies. Not enough to kill you instantly, but enough to contaminate every mile of its flight path. Enough that even if you shoot it down, you lose. Your cities, your farmland, your water, poisoned. This isn't science fiction. This isn't a video game. August 8, 2019, 5 Russian nuclear scientists die in an explosion so radioactive that the Kremlin evacuates an entire city, locks down hospitals, confiscates medical records, shuts down the White Sea for a month. What were they testing? This. The 9M730 Burevestnik. NATO codename Skyfall. A cruise missile powered by a nuclear reactor. A weapon with unlimited range. A weapon that can stay airborne for days. A weapon so dangerous, so environmentally catastrophic, that even during the Cold War, when both superpowers were building doomsday devices, America canceled its version and called it too insane to exist. Russia just built it anyway. And according to reports from just days ago, October 26, 2025, they finally got it to work. So in the next 20 minutes, we're going to answer 3 critical questions. 1. How does a nuclear-powered missile actually work, and why is the engineering both brilliant and terrifying? 2. Why did this missile kill the scientists who built it? And what does that tell us about how desperate Russia is to make it operational? And 3. If this missile actually works, what does that mean for you, for global security, for the possibility that missile defense, the thing we've spent hundreds of billions of dollars building, just became obsolete overnight? This is the story of the Burevestnik, the missile that never stops, the weapon NATO calls Skyfall, the flying reactor that might have just changed warfare. Let's have a detailed overview.
August 8th, 2019. The White Sea, northern Russia. At 11:55 a.m., sensors across Scandinavia detect something terrifying, a sudden spike in radiation levels. In a remote testing facility near Nyonoksa, 5 Russian nuclear scientists lie dead. Another 3 are critically injured, their bodies riddled with radioactive isotopes. The Russian government scrambles to contain the story. They lock down the nearest city, evacuate civilians, confiscate medical records from local hospitals. What happened that day wasn't a reactor meltdown. It wasn't a nuclear accident in the conventional sense. It was the catastrophic failure of the most ambitious and perhaps most reckless weapon ever conceived, a cruise missile powered by an unshielded nuclear reactor, a missile designed to fly forever, spreading radiation in its wake, evading every defense system on Earth. This is the story of the 9M730 Burevestnik. NATO calls it Skyfall. Western experts call it insane. Putin calls it unstoppable. March 1st, 2018. The Kremlin, Moscow. Vladimir Putin stands before Russia's Federal Assembly, delivering his annual address. But this isn't a typical speech. For nearly 2 hours, Putin unveils an arsenal of what he calls invincible strategic weapons, systems designed to render American missile defenses obsolete. Among hypersonic glide vehicles and nuclear-powered torpedoes, one weapon stands out: a cruise missile with unlimited range, a missile that doesn't need to refuel, a missile that can stay airborne for days, weeks even, circling the globe at treetop level, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Putin shows a video, grainy, clearly computer-generated, of a missile weaving through mountain ranges, crossing oceans, approaching the United States from the South Pole. The message is clear: there's nowhere to hide. But behind the propaganda, behind the theatrical presentation, lies a weapons program that has been decades in the making, and one that has left a trail of failure, radiation, and death. To understand the Burevestnik, we need to go back to the Cold War, back to when both superpowers first dreamed of nuclear-powered flight. The Cold War genesis. The year is 1957. The United States is terrified. The Soviet Union has just launched Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite. America's technological superiority is in question. The Pentagon panics. If the Soviets can put a satellite in orbit, what else can they do? In this atmosphere of fear, the U.S. Air Force greenlights one of the most audacious programs in military history, Project Pluto. The goal? Build a nuclear-powered cruise missile capable of flying at Mach 3, carrying multiple nuclear warheads and staying airborne for months. The concept is brutal in its simplicity. Instead of burning conventional fuel, the missile would use a nuclear ramjet, a reactor that heats incoming air to extreme temperatures, creating thrust. No fuel tanks, no refueling. Theoretically, unlimited range. Between 1961 and 1964, American engineers at the Nevada test site actually built working reactors for this system. They called them Tory 2A and Tory 2C. They ran them. They worked. But there was a problem. Several problems, actually. First, radiation. An unshielded nuclear reactor screaming through the atmosphere at low altitude would spread radioactive particles across its entire flight path. It wasn't just a weapon, it was an environmental catastrophe in the making. Second, noise. The ramjet would produce sound levels exceeding 150 decibels, loud enough to cause permanent hearing damage to anyone within miles of its flight path. Third, the strategic question. Even if you could build it, should you? A weapon so indiscriminate, so environmentally destructive that even the military questioned its ethics. By 1964, Project Pluto was canceled. The technology was sound, but the weapon was deemed too dangerous, too provocative, even for the Cold War. The Soviets were watching, and they never forgot. Fast forward to the 1990s. The Soviet Union has collapsed. Russia's military is in shambles. Budgets are slashed. Programs are canceled. The Russian defense industry is bleeding talent to the West. But in classified facilities, a small group of engineers continues working on something extraordinary. They've dusted off the old American Project Pluto documents, obtained through espionage decades earlier, and they're trying to solve the problems that killed the program. The project is codenamed Burevestnik, Russian for storm petrel, a seabird known for its ability to fly vast distances over open ocean. Unlike the American approach, the Russian design doesn't use a ramjet. Instead, they opt for a turbojet cycle, similar to a conventional jet engine, but with a nuclear reactor providing the heat instead of burning fuel. Here's how it theoretically works. Stage 1. Launch. The missile is boosted into the air by conventional solid-fuel rocket boosters, similar to any cruise missile. This gets it to sufficient speed and altitude. Stage 2, transition. Once airborne and at speed, the nuclear reactor activates. The reactor core, likely a compact high-temperature design using enriched uranium or plutonium, begins heating coolant fluid. Stage 3, propulsion. The heated coolant transfers thermal energy to compressed air flowing through the turbojet. The superheated air violently expands, creating thrust out the back of the engine. No combustion, no fuel consumption, just nuclear heat converting air into propulsion. Stage 4, sustained flight. As long as the reactor operates, the missile can fly. Days, weeks even, theoretically months. The advantages are obvious: unlimited range, unpredictable flight paths, ability to loiter over targets, capability to fly so low that radar can't track it effectively. But the engineering challenges are immense. Challenge 1, miniaturization. You need a nuclear reactor small and light enough to fit inside a cruise missile, yet powerful enough to generate meaningful thrust. This requires cutting-edge materials science and reactor design. Challenge 2, radiation shielding, or rather the deliberate lack of it. To keep weight down, the Burevestnik's reactor is believed to be minimally shielded. This means radiation leaks constantly during flight, a feature, not a bug from Russia's perspective, as it makes the missile effectively impossible to approach or intercept safely. Challenge 3, control systems. A nuclear reactor creates enormous electromagnetic interference. Your guidance systems, your electronics, everything has to be hardened against this radiation while operating in extreme heat. Challenge 4, testing. How do you test a nuclear-powered missile without creating an international incident? How do you recover a crashed prototype without spreading radioactive contamination? These questions would soon be answered in the most tragic way possible.
The Nyonoksa Disaster.
August 8, 2019, 11:55 a.m. Nyonoksa Test Site, Northern Russia. A routine missile test is underway at Russia's State Central Navy Testing Range, a remote facility on the White Sea, about 475 kilometers north of Moscow. The test involves recovering a missile engine from the seabed after a previous failed launch. The recovery platform is a modified barge floating offshore. On board, approximately 30 military personnel and civilian scientists from Rosatom, Russia's state nuclear corporation. At precisely 11:55 a.m., something goes catastrophically wrong. An explosion rips through the platform. Not a massive detonation. Witnesses describe it as more of a pop, followed by intense fire, but the consequences are immediate and deadly. Radiation alarms scream across the facility. Dosimeters max out. 5 Rosatom scientists, Alexei Vyushin, Evgeny Korotayev, Vyacheslav Lipshev, Sergei Pichugin, and Vladislav Yanovsky, are killed instantly or die within hours. 3 more are critically injured with radiation poisoning. Within minutes, Russian authorities spring into action, but not to help, to hide. The city of Severodvinsk, 30 kilometers away, detects radiation spikes up to 16 times normal background levels. Panicked residents begin hoarding iodine tablets, used to protect the thyroid from radioactive iodine exposure. The Russian government's response is a masterclass in Soviet-era obfuscation. First, they deny anything nuclear was involved. Then they admit there was a radioactive isotope power source. Then they locked down Severodvinsk, ordering residents not to leave. They confiscate medical records from hospitals treating the injured. They close shipping routes in the White Sea for a month. Western intelligence agencies, monitoring the incident through satellites and radiation sensors, reach a different conclusion. This wasn't a conventional weapons test gone wrong. The radiation signature, particularly the detection of cesium-137, barium-140, and strontium-91, indicates a nuclear reactor was involved. The United States officially identifies the test as involving the 9M730 Burevestnik. Russia doesn't confirm this publicly, but 3 months later, they do something telling. They award the 5 dead scientists the title Hero of the Russian Federation, the nation's highest honor. One posthumously receives the Order of Courage. These aren't decorations given for routine work. These are medals for extraordinary sacrifice in service of the state. The message is clear. These men died developing something the Kremlin considers vital to national security. But the incident raises uncomfortable questions. If this was just a routine test, why the extreme secrecy? Why the evacuation orders? Why confiscate medical records from hospitals treating the injured? Why close shipping routes in the White Sea for a month? Western intelligence agencies, monitoring the incident through satellites and radiation sensors, reach a different conclusion. This wasn't a conventional weapons test gone wrong. The radiation signature, particularly the detection of cesium-137, barium-140, and strontium-91, indicates a nuclear reactor was involved. The United States officially identifies the test as involving the 9M730 Burevestnik. Russia doesn't confirm this publicly, but 3 months later, they do something telling. They award the 5 dead scientists the title Hero of the Russian Federation, the nation's highest honor. One posthumously receives the Order of Courage. These aren't decorations given for routine work. These are medals for extraordinary sacrifice in service of the state. The message is clear. These men died developing something the Kremlin considers vital to national security. But the incident raises uncomfortable questions. If this was just a routine test, why the extreme secrecy? Why the evacuation orders? Why confiscate medical records from hospitals treating the injured? Why close shipping routes in the White Sea for a month? Western analysts believe the answer is simple. The Burevestnik test didn't just fail, it failed catastrophically, spreading reactor fuel or coolant across the test site. The recovery operation from the seabed may have damaged the reactor core, causing it to reach criticality when brought to the surface. In other words, Russia's scientists didn't just witness an explosion. They may have triggered a brief, uncontrolled nuclear chain reaction. The Nyonoksa disaster is a stark reminder. The Burevestnik isn't just an advanced weapon, it's a hazardous experiment in nuclear engineering, conducted with minimal safety margins, where failure means radioactive contamination and death. So how does this thing actually work? Let's break down the engineering, based on what Western intelligence has pieced together. The launch phase. The Burevestnik is believed to be launched from a modified TEL, Transporter Erector Launcher, similar to other Russian cruise missiles. It's essentially a large truck with a missile canister on top. Mobile, concealable, hard to track. At launch, solid fuel boosters ignite, propelling the missile into the air. This is conventional technology, the same kind used in Tomahawk or Caliber cruise missiles. The boosters burn for perhaps 30 to 60 seconds, getting the missile to subsonic speed, around 500 to 600 kilometers per hour, and up to a few hundred meters altitude. Then the boosters separate and fall away. The nuclear phase. Now comes the revolutionary part. The nuclear reactor activates. Based on design patents and intelligence assessments, the Burevestnik likely uses a compact, heat pipe-cooled fast reactor. This is a different design than traditional water-cooled reactors. Instead of pumping liquid coolant through the core, heat pipes, sealed tubes filled with liquid metal like sodium or potassium, transfer heat from the reactor core to the heat exchanger. When the reactor reaches operating temperature, likely between 800 and 1200 degrees Celsius, it begins heating air flowing through the turbojet engine. This superheated air expands dramatically, creating thrust. The beauty of this system? No combustion chamber needed, no fuel injectors, no complex fuel management, just nuclear heat turning compressed air into propulsion. Flight profile. Once under nuclear power, the Burevestnik descends to extremely low altitude. Estimates suggest 50 to 100 meters above the ground or water. At this height, it's nearly invisible to most radar systems. Ground-based radar is blocked by terrain and the Earth's curvature. Airborne radar struggles to distinguish the missile from ground clutter. The missile follows a pre-programmed route using inertial navigation, GPS or Russia's GLONASS system, and possibly terrain contour matching, similar to Tomahawk missiles. It can fly evasive patterns, change direction unpredictably, and loiter over potential targets. Speed is estimated at subsonic, probably 600 to 800 kilometers per hour. Not fast for missile standards, but speed isn't the point. Range and unpredictability are. The payload. The Burevestnik is designed to carry a nuclear warhead, likely in the megaton range. Russia hasn't specified, but intelligence estimates suggest anywhere from 1 to 2 megatons. For reference, that's 50 to 100 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The warhead is almost certainly a thermonuclear device, a hydrogen bomb, lightweight and efficient, designed for maximum strategic impact. The radiation problem. Here's where things get dark. Because the reactor is minimally shielded to save weight, the Burevestnik spreads radiation along its entire flight path. Not enough to immediately kill people on the ground, but enough to leave a trail of contamination. This isn't a bug, it's a feature. A missile that leaves radiation in its wake is a psychological weapon. It tells your enemy, even if you shoot this down, you lose. The wreckage spreads radioactive debris. The interception zone becomes contaminated. Your own cities become hazardous. It's a weapon designed to make defense pointless. And that's exactly what makes Western militaries so concerned. Since Putin unveiled the Burevestnik in 2018, Russia has conducted at least 13 known tests, possibly more, that went undetected. The success rate? Abysmal. U.S. intelligence officials testified before Congress that most tests ended in failure. Crashes, engine malfunctions, inability to transition from booster to nuclear propulsion. One test reportedly resulted in the missile flying only 22 miles before crashing into the sea. The 2019 Nyonoksa incident is the most catastrophic failure, but it's not the only one. Satellite imagery has identified at least 3 other suspected crash sites in remote Arctic regions, though Russia has never acknowledged these. Then, in late 2024 and into 2025, something changed. On October 26, 2025, just days ago, Russia announced a successful test of the Burevestnik. According to Russian media, the missile flew more than 14,000 kilometers, demonstrated evasion of air defense systems, and validated all key design parameters. Western analysts are skeptical, but cautiously so. Why skeptical?
Because Russia has a history of exaggerating weapons capabilities. The video footage released by the Russian Ministry of Defense is low quality, heavily edited, and shows no independent verification. But why cautious? Because after years of failures, it's entirely possible Russia has finally solved the engineering problems. Incremental progress is how complex weapon systems work, and Russia has shown they're willing to accept enormous risks, including dead scientists, to make this work. If the October 2025 test was genuine, if the Burevestnik is now operational, the strategic calculus changes overnight. So what does the Burevestnik actually mean for global security? Let's start with the strategic implications. First, missile defense obsolescence. The United States has spent hundreds of billions of dollars on missile defense systems, ground-based interceptors, Aegis destroyers, THAAD batteries, satellite tracking. All of these systems are designed to intercept missiles flying predictable ballistic trajectories. The Burevestnik doesn't fly ballistic trajectories. It flies low, slow, and unpredictable. It can approach from any direction, at any time, after flying for days or weeks. Traditional missile defense systems can't handle this. This isn't speculation. U.S. military officials have openly stated that existing defenses are ineffective against low-flying, maneuvering cruise missiles, especially nuclear-powered ones that don't need to refuel. Second, the deterrence dilemma. Nuclear deterrence relies on certainty. You need to know where the missiles will come from. You need to know the flight time. You need to know you have minutes, however brief, to make decisions. The Burevestnik undermines all of this. A missile launched from Russia could circle the globe for days, approaching the United States from the south, from over the Pacific, from anywhere. There's no predictable warning, no clear decision window. This creates what strategists call strategic ambiguity, and ambiguity is dangerous.